Thank you so much for joining us. I'm really happy to be talking to you today. So my name is Eva. I'm from Germany, and I've been working in fundraising for the last decade or even a bit longer, mostly with grassroots NGOs from Nepal, South America, but also in Europe. And I used to live in Nepal. Now since 2019, I'm back in Germany, but I still continue to do the same work. I just came back from Nepal, where we ran a couple of workshops, and that was amazing again. Philanthropia is a consulting company, and we have a lot of online courses. We run webinars, etc. Probably you have joined us for one of those in the past, and you're already signed up for our newsletters, so you kind of know what we're doing. And every time when we are doing webinars, we get tons of questions in the end, and we don't always have time to go through all of them. So we have decided to do these open Q&A sessions where you can ask anything that you're interested in. So we've asked you to send in questions. We've received a lot of them, but you also have the opportunity today to send us questions into the chat box, etc., so that we can go through them. And yeah, you can ask anything related to fundraising today. I will try my best to answer your questions. Obviously, if they are super specific to only your cause, it's going to be very difficult for me, but I will try, and I will try to give you an answer that is useful. So you can use the chat box to type in your questions. And the first question that we received is from Abdikadir. Please shed the light on donor networking. So we've received a lot of questions concerning that. Another question was that we had received online before via email was how can we leverage our relationships with donors, etc. So I will talk about donor networking for a bit. But also to let you know that we have webinars and online courses specifically about this topic. You will receive, you're signed up for the newsletter, so you receive those links, but I also want to let you know that all the online courses that I'm mentioning, all the resources that we're using are available on philanthropia.org. So when you check that out, and maybe also sometimes if I keep talking about a course, my team will be posting the link to that course into the chat box so that you can click it if you're interested. And just to let you know, if you use the coupon code fundraising, you will get a 30% discount on any product that you find on our website. Talking about donor networking. Networking is super important. Sometimes we say fundraising is networking because, as you know, sending out grant writing, applying for grants has become incredibly competitive. So if you just send out a grant or if you send out a proposal, you will get a lot of rejections. And that's not always because your proposal is not good. Oftentimes they are amazing, but you don't get the funding because the competition is so high. So what you want to do is try to leverage your relationships, develop relationships with donors before you send anything out. So that means researching donors, finding potential partners, and then identifying someone at that donor's office that you could talk to, that you could have a conversation with, kind of then developing this relationship into something bigger, and then finally getting the opportunity to ask for funding. Or whenever you go to a conference, whenever you meet with others, whenever you go to a networking meeting, anything, you kind of put on your fundraising hat and go out and extend your network, because you will be meeting people that could be very interesting, could be very useful in a way to you. So those could be people that work at a donor's office, but they could also be very wealthy people, could be people who could give you references, who could give you recommendations, etc. So keep all of that in mind, and always try to connect with people and network with people. If you're not sure how to do that, we actually just developed a new online course. I think it's free, I'm not 100% sure, about the elevator pitch, because the elevator pitch is a great way to meet someone, to discuss and to kind of introduce yourself while also learning something about the other person and not overwhelming them. Because as workers in NGOs, we tend to talk about our own work way too much. So when we meet someone, we kind of throw it all on them, talking about the impact and everything from A to Z. But oftentimes that's too much to just start a conversation. So in those, when you just meet someone, you don't have a lot of time, you kind of just want to get your business card in there, you want to get another meeting where you could talk more and learn more, then the elevator pitch can be very useful because it teaches you how to present yourself in 60 seconds, which, yeah, sometimes you just have those 60 seconds. And I see my team just posted the link to that course. I really recommend that. Yeah, but in general, networking, you can use that not only to eventually ask for funding and develop a relationship with a donor to get funding, but also to try to influence donors at some point, because you can only kind of present your way of seeing things if you are in that sphere. If you are not connected, if you're not talking to any donors, to any agencies, etc., then obviously they will never learn about your work and never learn maybe about the constraints that you have, about how their programs maybe not perfectly fit your circumstances. No, so you need to be in those spaces, and to be in those spaces, you need to network, you need to know people. So yeah, this is crucial. This is very important. The easiest way to network with donors is to network with the donors that you already have. And that is also very important. And many NGOs don't do that. When they get a grant, they are happy. Maybe they say thank you, then they do their project, send the report, and that's that. But the easiest donor that you can find is the one that has already funded you. And they will also be more than happy to invite you to their meetings, to maybe present you to others, etc., because they want you to thrive. If they have made the decision to fund you, they want to support you with everything that they have. So kind of nurturing those relationships can be really, really important and can be really, really helpful for you. So yeah, make sure that you do that. Make sure that you follow up with people, that you stay in touch with the donors that you do have, and that you get the most out of those relationships. Again, if you want to learn more specifically about networking, about who to network with, how to identify good contact people at foundations, etc., take the webinar. It's available on YouTube. When you follow us on our YouTube channel, you can find webinars about all those topics, and you can just watch that webinar or sign up for the online course that's a little bit more comprehensive even, where we talk about donor networking, all the steps you can take, how to approach people, how to send a cold email, etc., all of that. Then there's another question. Are there fully funded in-person workshops regarding proposal writing that you would recommend? That's difficult to say because I don't know where you're based, and I wouldn't know probably. I don't know. Maybe I know a couple of in Germany, but even when they're in person, usually it's not fully funded. Usually you have to pay at least something. There's a lot of good stuff out there online. Obviously, I like our stuff because we deliver it, and I think we do really good quality work, but that's online mostly. We do in-person stuff in Nepal sometimes, but apart from that, I'm not 100% sure. You can follow a couple of those pages that publish. I think DevEx does it. We also sometimes publish opportunities when we see them. So make sure you signed up to our newsletter and follow us on social media. But you can find those opportunities on these platforms sometimes. And then there's a question from Ikama Development Foundation, I guess. I can't read it all. If I can share information on donors that are interested in funding projects on women's empowerment, child protection, youth participation. I can't share direct contacts now because it depends on so many things which donors would be a good fit for you. What I can do is I can talk to you about donor research so that you can find them yourself. Because I think that is a tool that is really important, and it makes a lot of sense to kind of invest a bit and learn about donor research or use a database. For example, we have the donor database. If you go to donordatabase.org, you can also sign up for free for a week and try it out and type in those things. So you would type in that information. And then from there, you can type in your information, your country, the topics that you are interested in, and then it shows a list of potential donors. Obviously, they are not all perfect donors. You still have to further research them, further check if they are good fits, etc. But it gives you a start. So if you want to try that, it's donordatabase.org. So you can check that out and try it for free for a week. And after that, it's also a very decent price. Otherwise, if you are searching, for example, for, this was women's empowerment, child protection in, I don't know which country, I guess an African country, not sure, but you can check your competition or the people that work in the same sphere. I don't really like the word competition and development because I feel like we're all working for the same goals. So we're not really competition, working in the same area, but check another organization that does very similar work to yours and see who funds them. So usually you can find that information either on the website or in the annual report. Some foundations, some NGOs share that very openly. For example, if you check the big ones like Save the Children, they have in their annual report, they have a full list of donors, sometimes even like amount they give, sometimes it's in categories. So I've seen, I think that was Save the Children, where they said above 500,000, 500,000 to 300,000, 300 to 1, like that. And then obviously if you find individual names there, they probably won't give. If an individual gives 100,000 to Save the Children, I don't think that they will give another 100,000 to you. But if you find foundations, if you find businesses, those are partners that you can approach. And the good thing about this is when you find them in an annual report, then you know that they definitely fund, they are active. Because if you just do the research through Google or databases, etc., then sometimes you might find foundations that are not active any longer, but it's difficult to tell because you kind of have to dig through their homepage and dig really deep. But if you find foundations that have funded similar work to the work that you are doing last year, then you know they are active. So it makes a lot of sense to contact them. And if they fund the very similar work to the work that you do, then why wouldn't they also want to fund you? There's a big chance. So just go for it and try it. So that's a very easy way to do donor research and to find potential partners. Huh? You can obviously also use Google. If you put in here, like whatever, women's empowerment, let's say Kenya, and then a grant announcement or call for applications, then stuff will come up. Not everything, but you can kind of get through a lot this way as well. Then it makes a lot of sense to follow the big donors, follow their social media, but also subscribe to their newsletters. They all have a newsletter that is usually of high quality, so they share their opportunities, and you should follow that and always look at the things that you see there. Follow big players on social media and look what they are doing. And again, also if you follow other social organizations on social media, you will see where they get their funding from, because they will publish that. Nowadays, everything needs to be published. Nowadays, all those foundations want this information to be out there. So you will find it if you follow those. So those are very easy ways and methods to do donor research that I can really recommend to get an overview and then to get an idea who you can contact and who you can talk to. Then there's a question by Sancho: what's the possibility of fundraising on SDGs implementation in terms of developing countries? Actually, I think with the SDGs, it's very useful if you are able to connect your work to the SDGs and make it very clear how you can help to implement them or to reach them, to achieve them, because that's a big deal. No, there was a lot of progress, but now a lot of things have been backtracked because of the war in Ukraine, because of COVID, etc. So there's a lot of tension, a lot of stress on many big donors, at least, to make that progress again, because they need to be reached by 2030, or should be. Probably will not be, but should be. That's still the goal. So if you can, in a proposal or in any way when you contact the donor, show that your project really contributes to the SDGs and to which ones, and you can show a very clear connection, I think using that and leveraging that in your application makes a lot of sense. So I would say chances are growing. Also in the European Union, there's new rules and regulations very closely connected to sustainability and the SDGs that after a certain point in time, when you apply for a grant from the European Commission or money from the European Commission, you have to fulfill, as a business, you have to fulfill specific guidelines concerning sustainability and then also the SDGs. So they will be looking for partners to help them to kind of fill those requirements. So any connection you can make there is a good one, I think, and has a lot of potential for the future. Then James is asking, what are the main strategic fundraising methods? I think, I hope I understand that question correctly. Fundraising methods, I would always say, is the different instruments that you can use in fundraising, because fundraising basically just means raising funds, getting money, getting donations of some sort or contributions of some sort. So we have grant writing, which is what we focus most on. So that's when foundations, institutional donors, governments, all those agencies give out grants. Grant means that they give you money, you don't have to pay it back. And sometimes they give loans, different forms, etc. But we mostly look at grants. That is one instrument. It's if you look at statistics, it's one of the biggest ones because it gives a lot of, you can, like a grant is a lot of money, and if you compare it to individual donations, etc., it's a lot. So it makes a lot of sense to do grant writing and to be professional in this field, but it's also very specific. Then there's other tools or methods that you can use. For example, individual giving. That's when you ask for donations from individuals. You can do that locally, regionally, internationally, through the internet. Then it's called online fundraising. So just talking to individuals. There's major donor giving. So that's when you talk to really wealthy, rich individuals, and then usually get bigger donations. That's a different beast, though, because they usually, like, rich people need a lot of pampering kind of until they are ready to give you bigger sums and until they're ready to commit. So if you want to do that, either you have to be super lucky or you have to have someone full-time who is just dedicated to this. The same goes for legacy fundraising, which means that you have people that leave money to you in their will. That happens quite a lot in the US and Europe now, because there's many wealthy individuals who are getting older now and maybe don't have family, or maybe their family is wealthy enough, they don't want to leave everything to their family. So they put in their will a passage that says, okay, when I die, I don't know, 100,000, 200,000, maybe sometimes my house, sometimes everything goes to this organization. That is called legacy fundraising. I think in developing countries, maybe that doesn't have so much perspective, but in Europe and the US, that's definitely an area that is growing very quickly, because we have societies that are aging and families that have become smaller and smaller. So oftentimes there's no heirs anymore. So that is an issue. Then you have fundraising with corporations, with businesses, which again requires a bit of a different language, a bit of a different approach, because usually when you work with a foundation, they have they also want to achieve goals, want to achieve something in the social sphere. When you work with businesses, yes, they have their CSR programs, etc., but in the end, they still want to sell stuff. So they are always looking at working with you from a business-driven perspective. So that means that you also have to use a bit of different language, approach them from a different angle, think of public relations every time you say something, stuff like that. So you need to keep different things in mind when you want to work with businesses. Yeah, and then there's a whole big field of online fundraising, obviously, that encompasses everything from donations through your website to crowdfunding, to fundraising through gaming, which is growing very quickly now. In the next years, probably you can start raising funds through Siri and Alexa, where you just tell them donate this amount to. So there's a lot of stuff happening, and I think that is one of the fastest growing tools or like branches of fundraising. So if you do have the infrastructure, the opportunity, then I would say that is a very good field to kind of extend your infrastructure. But I also understand that many countries in the developing world don't have access to the financial system in the same way that we here in Germany, for example, have. So I know PayPal can be a problem, credit cards can be a problem. And then obviously online fundraising is a problem if you can't access the money in a good way. So you have to decide if that is something for you, if that is something that works or maybe doesn't. So I would say that in my opinion are the main fundraising methods, instruments that you can use. Okay, so it cleared. The person who was asking for in-person training asked for Somalia. I don't think we have any information, but whenever we find something, we put it out there. We also share opportunities. So again, just follow us, and then sometimes you might get lucky. But you can also set up a Google alert, for example, for something like in-person training, Somalia fundraising, and then whenever anybody publishes anything about it, it will pop up on your computer and you will find it. So maybe that can help. Okay, so I think we have another question in the Q&A section. Do you have any tips on how to identify high net worth individuals within East Africa? Not really. That is an area that my expertise is small. Even in Germany, it's difficult. In Germany, sometimes stuff gets published. You can see like who pays, there's statistics. Then obviously you kind of can tell by where people live. You can see which companies they own, and then you can kind of deduct, okay, they are wealthy or not. But maybe it's better to go the other way around and kind of contact those who want to be found, because if people don't want to be identified as wealthy, they probably also don't want to be contacted for donations. So maybe check if anybody is in the press a lot, and not only with affairs and crazy stories, but like supporting projects, etc., and then try to contact them, try to contact their family office, etc. Sometimes you can find information about which individual has already done this kind of stuff in the past, and then you can kind of go from there. Okay. Then we have a couple of questions that reached us through email beforehand. One question was, can you send the same proposal to more than one donor? And that's a definite no. So you should never send the exact same proposal to different donors. So there's a lot of bad things that can happen. Sometimes it happened to us that we sent like the same proposal with a different name, and then we forgot to change the name everywhere. So obviously that looks very bad. If you, it's the same with job applications. You shouldn't just send the exact same letter to different jobs, because it should be tailored. That doesn't mean that you always have to start from zero when you write a new proposal. There's some parts of the proposal that you can obviously reuse and repurpose. No, you don't always have to start from zero. So you can use, for example, whatever the organizational background, that won't change much. You can maybe change the specific experiences that you want to showcase, but in general that won't change much. If you apply for the exact same project, then the background won't change much. But what will change is the relevance to the donor, because every donor is different, and you have to show in a proposal that your project is relevant to them and will help them to achieve their mission. And so because their missions will be different, obviously that part has to be adjusted. Sometimes the budget has to be adjusted. Sometimes the activities have to be adjusted to sit with their requirements, etc. So you do have to change things up. But obviously, when you have one proposal ready to go for one project and you want to send it to another donor as well, use that proposal and work from it. But just be very careful that you change all the names, super important, and yeah, that you kind of tailored it to the donor, because the most important thing is the guidelines, is what the donor wants to see. Because if you don't fulfill those, then you will not be successful. Then it's almost a definite no, because if they have guidelines and you don't follow them in every detail, then they will just reject you. That is the reality. So make sure you follow, make sure it's adjusted, and make sure it doesn't read like something that you've sent out to 10 people. So Mary is asking, how crucial is it to source funds online? Well, it's not, it depends on your organization. No, if you don't have the infrastructure, then just don't do it, focus on something else. I'm just saying, like, when you look at the different fundraising instruments, online fundraising is the one that grows fastest, which just means it's growing. It's not bigger than grants at all. So if you are very successful in grant writing, then you don't have to start doing online fundraising, because that in competition, that wouldn't make sense to you. But I'm just saying that is something that is growing currently, because more and more people are moving online. More and more digital natives are getting to the age that they want to donate money. So if you want to talk to those people, if that is your target group for your fundraising, then online fundraising makes a lot of sense, or thinking about ways to kind of incorporate that into your page or your social media, etc., whatever you have. But if you can't, if you don't have the resources, if it's not working in your country, then don't do it. Do something that works for you. It's not crucial. So the next question is, I think, do developing countries or underdeveloped countries follow the same structure for proposals, or is there any differences? I think it's that the basic structure is always the same. Obviously, the problems that you will address are different, and the circumstances that you have in your country are always different. But in general, the structure of a proposal and what you have to show is very similar. I think when you work in very vulnerable contexts, sometimes donors want to be assured that you have monitoring in place, because they feel like they don't want money to get lost. So you just have to make very sure that you have monitoring structures, evaluation structures in place, and that you can show that you have good indicators, etc., that you can show some kind of impact so the money doesn't get lost. I think that maybe is a change. That's what I'm seeing when I compare proposals I've written for projects in developing countries to proposals that I'm working on right now in Germany. Sometimes the requirements are even a bit higher, just because the context is maybe not as rigid as in other countries. Or so I think that would be the only difference I would see. During fundraising, what the types of activities should be done? Well, that's very difficult. If we talk about grant writing, and this is our area of expertise, so I'm just going to take it from that. It's the basic steps of the grant cycle. We've talked about that a lot in our webinars. So again, if you want to learn more, you can check out the webinar on the fundraising cycle on YouTube, or check out the course, the big online course that we have, the 5 obstacles to fundraising success. I think the most important steps are, first is you need a strategy. You need to develop a fundraising strategy to know what has been happening in your organization in the past, where you're moving, what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, what do you want to show to the outside world, etc. So you need a strategy. Then in the strategy, you will define the steps that you want to take. You need a good project plan. So we're actually working on an online course to develop a great project plan, how you can do that, how you can ensure impact, etc. That will be published in the coming weeks. So stay tuned for that. So you need great project plans. Then you need to do donor research, would be the next step. Find a perfect donor fit. Don't just send it out to anybody, but find that donor that really wants to fund the work you do, that really aligns with your philosophy, with your theory of change. Find a good donor, then network with them. Introduce yourself, get to know the donor, make sure that you know what they are about and they know what you are about, etc. This is the networking process we talked about in the beginning. During the networking, you will find, you will get a lot of intelligence, you will get information about what they want to see, what are their eligibility criteria. Sometimes you can find that in the guidelines, sometimes you kind of have to dig deeper. Very important to figure out before you send anything, before you put any work into writing a proposal, figuring out if you're really eligible, if that donor is a good fit for you, if if you want to work with them, if it fits. No, so try to figure out their eligibility criteria. That's step 4, and then you apply. So you can apply with a concept note, you can send an expression of interest, you can send a full proposal depending on what they want to see from you. And ideally, but in this stage, because you went through all the stages, you researched them, you networked with them, you figured out eligibility, etc. You know exactly what they want to see, so you know what you have to send them. So you send them a concept note or a proposal, etc. And then ideally they say, yes, great project. Sometimes they might have questions, you clarify, they say, yes, we will fund you. And then you can implement your project. But then the cycle of fundraising kind of continues, because then you look, as in with the project cycle, you evaluate, but you don't evaluate your project, you evaluate your fundraising. So you look, what did we do well? Where are we lacking? Did we spend too much time on this, too little time on this, etc.? And then you write down lessons learned, take that knowledge, apply it to your strategy, and move to the next cycle, do research again, etc. So those, I would say, are the main activities that you have to do throughout the fundraising cycle when we talk about grant writing, to identify good donors and then learn about them to then apply with them. So there's another question from Martino. What strategies can one put into paper when writing a proposal for local funding, raising funds domestically? So I think if you mean like what strategies you can put in when they ask you how you want to fund, get more funding, yes, that's one idea. You can also collect donations from members, maybe not donations, but maybe membership fees. When you have a project where you have any product, you can think about a social enterprise system where you sell something or sell a service, or you can also ask for contributions by beneficiaries, if that is possible at all, to kind of have a little bit of money for your own project. So Mary is asking, for example, if you have a project and it has come to an end, but you want to open a new site in a new area, is it possible to renew your proposal? So the first thing I would do, if you want to do that, is contact your donor and ask, look, this worked out very well, it was a big success, so we want to extend, we want to use the same system that you already funded, that you helped us develop somewhere else to benefit more people. And maybe you can get lucky and get more funding, but I wouldn't go, like if they have an open call each year or something like that, I wouldn't immediately go through that call. I would try to contact them directly, because if you've had a grant with them, then they know that you know someone there, no? So that you can talk to. So I would use that personal connection, invite them to the closing ceremony, invite them to the project, show everything. Oh, this is so amazing. Now we just need more to extend this. Because again, they have already invested in you. So they want you to succeed, and they have invested in this methodology, in this project that you have developed. And so they want to see that flourishing. So what better reference to say this was so successful, we're going to do it in another site, no? So contact your old donor first. If they say apply again, yeah, obviously, but you have to adjust the proposal a lot. You can't use the same proposal. You have to, yeah, kind of work in the experience that you've already gained, the experience of the last year, of the last project phase, use that, and then move towards the next site. If you apply somewhere else for funding, you have to be careful, because oftentimes donors don't like it when they kind of just are added to a project. So you have to, if you apply somewhere completely different, you have to make it look like it's a completely new project. Obviously, you could say that the first project was like a test balloon, and now you are applying this to scale, blah, blah, blah. Don't, obviously you have to say that you've already done a test version of this project, but it should sound like you've developed the methodology further and now you want to use it somewhere else. Because if you just say, oh, we've done this already and this foundation funded this and now we want to do it again, that's not very interesting to donors. No, you kind of have to add something to it, kind of have to make it sound like it's new, like it's innovative, or it's using some new methodology that you tried out, etc. Okay, so there's a question from Joyce. How to bring M&E into the proposal with the log frame. Actually, we also have a full course about developing a log frame. So if that is very important for you, I would recommend you check that one out. Generally, there's a section where you talk about how you would like to monitor and evaluate. So you have to set indicators. You need some baseline data. You need to tell the donor where you want to get, etc. Depending on the size of your project, it also depends on the size of the monitoring and evaluation. So you basically describe what you're planning to do. Sometimes evaluation means that it's done by outsiders. So then you even need to put that into the budget, because if you have to pay someone to do your evaluation, that needs to be reflected in the budget. But oftentimes you can do it internally. Then you just describe it. You describe your plan. How do you want to do it? And then you kind of need a log frame with indicators, a baseline value, target value, milestones, etc. We explain a lot about that in the proposal writing course as well, and in the webinars. So that's where you can learn about that. Then the second question is, what's the difference between a concept note and a full proposal? Again, we have a full webinar about writing a concept note, if that's interesting for you, so check that out. But I would say, so some people think that the main difference is that a concept note is just a small or a shorter proposal, a condensed proposal, and that's not what it is, I would say. Many donors use like a two-phase process where first they ask for a concept note and then they shortlist some projects, and then they ask for a full proposal. And in those cases, yes, oftentimes you have to include almost the identical information, but just in a condensed form. But when that is the case, donors will also tell you exactly what to put into a concept note. So then again, you have guidelines, you follow them to the T. And you should be very careful that you include all the things that they ask for. But usually a concept note can also be used to kind of reach out, to make a first contact with a new donor. In those cases, I would focus most on, so you need a project summary, then you tell them why the project is necessary, then you include a call to action, and you include contact information, those 4 things. And I would focus mostly on the section that says why the project matters and why it should matter to the donor. So where you show the relevance of this project to the donor's work. And why is that? Because you can explain perfectly what you want to do in your project, and that's the summary, or that's where you talk about the project. But if they don't understand why it's necessary, if they don't understand the underlying problem, then why should they fund it? Even if it's the perfect project, but if they don't understand the issue, then they will not give you money. But if they understand the issue and your project makes sense and they have any detailed question or something, they can still ask you and they would do that. So if you have limited amount of space, I would always focus more on the relevance part. Relevance in general, like why is the problem a problem? And also relevance to the donor. Why should the donor support you? How does that help the donor in achieving their own mission? No, that's what you should have in a concept note. And a full proposal covers everything. It has the full budget. A concept note almost never has a full budget. It also has some information about the organization, the background. It has some more information about expected results, expected impact, monitoring and evaluation, all those parts. And usually that's not, all of that is not covered in the concept note. So that's the main difference. And then the fourth part of the question is, I would like to understand the differences of output, outcome, and input. Okay, so those are kind of three categories of results that donors want to see. The output is the most direct result of your project. It's not, doesn't have any impact yet. It doesn't have any long-term effect yet. It's just when you do something that you've done the activity. So if you do a if you hold a training, then the output is training held, farmers trained, students trained. If you build a school, then the output is school is there, school is built. So the direct result of your activity done, that's an output. And then the next level is outcome. So that means, what do the people do with that? What happens midterm? So for example, if you have a training, do the people, the outcome would be that people use what they have learned and change their behavior to a certain degree. That's an outcome. That's a kind of the midterm result of your project. What happens next? If you build a school, then the midterm result would be the students go to the school and actually get an education. It's the next step. So and then the impact, I don't know if you mean that, or I can also talk about input, but then the next would even be impact, which is long-term result on the base of the society. So then if the entire society changes, if the entire village changes because of enhanced education, something like that, that is very difficult to measure, very difficult to claim. So I would not mention that in a proposal, but output and outcome is something that you can definitely talk about. And then input is what you do, obviously. Input is the activities, is what you put into the project to actually achieve the results that you are planning for. No? So that would be the input. So, okay, there seems to be a problem with Teachable. So maybe you can send us an email at info@philanthropia.org. We can figure it out. I can't really tell you what the problem is now. Yeah, my team already answered, but if the problem consists, then maybe just send an email and we will try to figure it out. Then there's another question, can I get a volunteer to help us in fundraising? So usually we recommend to not use volunteers to write proposals, because that's a skill that you will always need again in your organization. And in our experience, it makes more sense to kind of hone those skills within your organization to be able to use them long term. So we also do not recommend to get a consultant, which is a bit schizophrenic because we are consultants, but we always recommend that you learn how to do it yourself, and we're more than happy to teach you, but we wouldn't write a proposal for you, and we don't really recommend you get a consultant to do that, an outsider, because that is a skill that you will need over and over and over again. So in my opinion, it makes more sense to learn it yourself. What you can do, for example, is if you have volunteers that they can help you to do donor research, because that can be like very time consuming, looking on Google, searching through websites, etc. That is a good task for a volunteer, because that is not very difficult, and they can do that and can really help you with it. Or if you are working with international volunteers, they can be amazing proofreaders, because that's one of the things that we always recommend. Before you send anything out, make sure it's correct and there's no typos, there's nothing in there. So you need someone to proofread your work. And if you have international volunteers, that could be a good use of them if you want to involve them in fundraising. Then there's a question about the website, what needs to be on the website. That's very specific to communications, but we do have on proposals for NGOs, we have some articles on what should the website look like, what do you have to include, what should your social media pages look like, etc. So maybe you can check that out. Maybe if someone from the team can even find that article and post it. It's about the website of NGOs. We have a lot of information on there. And then there's a question, could the cost of the project evaluation maybe included in the proposal? Yes, definitely. If you need to do a project evaluation, if it's asked by the donor, or if you feel like it's necessary because you're trying a new approach, whatever, then definitely include that in the proposal, because it's costs that will occur and otherwise you can't cover it. It needs to be in relation. No, you shouldn't apply for a $10,000 for the project and $5,000 for the evaluation. Then it's not in relation. But if you can find a good relation between those two costs, definitely included. All those things that you need to do, or that maybe the donor even asks you to do, need to be included, because they need to be reflected. Because if you don't have the money to do it, you can't do it. And that's always going to be an issue long term. No? So include those things. Also, if you have an overhead, if you need to pay an accountant, if you know that like working on the bills, everything, procurement is going to be super difficult, then employ someone for that and include that in the proposal. Because if you don't, you'll have to cover it from your organization side, and oftentimes that's very, very difficult. So if an evaluation, an outside evaluation makes sense or is requested, then always include it into the budget. But make sure that it's in relation to the full cost, obviously. I'm just scrolling through the questions that we've received before the webinar, because I think I can take one or two more. Because a lot of it is about research, networking, etc. We've talked about that. So again, there's one question that says, what role does storytelling and narrative play in successful fundraising and proposal writing? That's a very good question, because I feel like in the end, we always think of proposal writing as something very technical, and it's true, because it's a description of the projects, etc. It's a lot of very dry information. It's a budget, it's numbers, etc. But at the same time, the person who reads the proposal is a human being. So to include some elements that make it more interesting, or to include some elements that make it more colorful and more engaging is never a bad idea. Obviously not too much, because a proposal still is a technical document, but to some degree. so that you can catch the reader's attention, because that's also something that you need to do and should do in the long term. Storytelling, maybe as a tool in the way that you can learn about it online, maybe is better for social media and the website. But some of those elements, like if you tell, if you put in a lot of numbers, for example, if you can connect that to a story or to someone, maybe through a box, a case study, something like that, it will be remembered much better. Because if you don't, there have been studies, I think it was the University of Oxford, that said if you tell someone a story or a fact, they will remember that story 80 times more than the fact. So you still want people that read your proposal to remember your proposal, because you want them to recommend it, no? So it can make sense when appropriate. If you have guidelines and they are super strict, like if you're sending a proposal to the European Commission, they are very strict, they have their log frames, they have their documents, etc., then I don't think there's a lot of space for storytelling. But if you send your proposal to a foundation that has no guidelines and just told you, oh, send us a proposal or send us a couple of pages, then you can be a bit more free with that and try to include elements of storytelling and a good narrative into your proposal and your documents. Sometimes, again, it makes sense to kind of divide that into the technical part and then add some boxes as case studies so they can decide if they want to read it, or maybe case studies as an annex, something like that. But something to create emotion, to create a connection, makes a lot of sense, because that will probably enhance chances that your proposal will get chosen. And then there were a couple of questions from people who say that they just started their NGOs, what kind of advice I could give for newcomers, for brand new NGOs. We actually, I know I keep saying this, but we have tons of courses. We do have a course on what to do if your NGO is brand new, because we do know that some donors don't want to fund NGOs that are so new, that have no history, no references, etc. So we've put together a course with tips for that. So there's two main things that I would recommend if you just start out and are looking for partners and are looking for connections. So one thing is start with smaller grants. Don't try too high, because oftentimes a small grants program will still accept you, even if you just started. Small grant means anything between 100 euros or dollars and 10,000. What I really liked was programs of embassies. So if you want to check that out, because in many countries, the embassies have programs that fund sometimes up to 5,000, sometimes up to 3,000, something like that. And you can find those programs and apply even if your NGO is new. So then you can collect first experiences with managing a small grant, implementing a small project, and then you get a reference. Then you have a track record. And then the next one, you can apply for a bigger one and already show, well, we've worked with this government and we've worked with this agency and they were happy with us and we implemented this project nicely, and you move from there, no? That's one very good way to get started. And there's many other foundations and other partners that offer small grants. So check for that and apply there first. And the other thing that we recommend is to try to enter partnerships. Because if your NGO is brand new, then maybe there's another NGO in your community or in your area of work that has more experience, has maybe a couple of years of working experience, and you could partner up with them. So you could approach them and say, look, we want to apply for this grant. It's perfect for the work we're doing and you are doing, but we don't have the years of experience. Can we partner on this? We can help each other. We can work together. So that way you can also access some funding sources that otherwise would not be open to you. But when you do that, you have to keep in mind that it's super important that you have a good contract in place, that you make very clear from the beginning who has which responsibilities, because otherwise, if you apply jointly you get the grant and the money is in someone's account, it can get very difficult to clear things up afterwards. So just make sure that you have good understanding of who will receive how much money of the grant, who will do what, which tasks are, how the tasks are divided, and yeah, how the responsibilities are divided, and write that down in a contract, because again, you wouldn't believe how many friendships or good relationships end after there's money involved. You probably will believe that, because you probably all have your experiences with that. So just make sure that whenever you do enter a partnership with another NGO, another organization, that everything is written out very well and that you have a good contract for that. But then applying in a partnership is an amazing way to enter the field, because again, you collect experience, you collect years, because you will start working, you will start doing your work, and then after that project is finished, you already have a year or two on your registration, and you also collect experiences, you can collect references, all of that makes a lot of sense and can be super helpful. And then there's another question here that I will answer real quick. Every donor has its own formats for the project concept notes and proposals. Is there a place to find and download those various formats? Nope, not really. You always have to check the donor's website and see what they give you. If you're not sure, if you can't find it there, I would just contact them. Sometimes they just send it out. Sometimes it's not a download, but sometimes you have to request it, or they only give it to you when you're invited, etc. So then I would just directly ask the donors for that. But there's not, as far as I know, there's not one platform where you can find all of those formats or anything like that. Okay. Yeah, thank you so much for all your great questions. I hope I was able to give you some knowledge, some insight. This session was recorded, so you can rewatch it or share it with your colleagues if that's interesting for you. For us, of course, it's always good if you recommend us, because we try to give you as much free content as possible. So it would be really nice if you also share about us with your colleagues, with other team members, etc., other people that you think could benefit from this. We are also always looking for recommendations. So if you want to write maybe a paragraph or two about your experience with our courses, what you've learned from us, maybe also if we helped you to get a grant, or if we've helped you to whatever, change some structures in your organization through our webinars, through our trainings, it would be amazing to hear from you. So if you want to share any feedback, if you want to share any experiences with us that and would allow us to use that in our marketing materials, you can send that to info@philanthropia.org. That would be really, really nice to have, because again, we try to share as much as we can for free with you, because we know that you are doing amazing work and many of you don't have the resources to pay for these courses. But again, at the same time, we're trying to extend our network, and we also have to reach a little bit beyond our network. So that would be great. If you have any feedback you want to share, if we've maybe contributed to some successes, it would be great to hear about that. And again, you can send it over to info@philanthropia.org. Thanks again. I hope to see you in one of our next webinars again. We will let you know through the newsletter. Please sign up again, please join us again, and I'm looking forward to it. Thank you. Bye-bye.